Hello and welcome. I'm Jenny Hall. Thanks for joining me for another card making tutorial. Today I would like to share a card that I made like a mass production. You may recently remember that I hosted a watercolor class with my good friend Charlotte Mallet in Atlantic City, New Jersey. As a thank you, I've created a card for each of the participants, and I'd like to share the design that I created with you today. Being as it was a watercolor class, I thought it would be appropriate to make a watercolor card. I'm using the stamp set called Better With You from Stampin' Up, and this one's not going to be around much longer. It's a retiring stamp set. In fact, many of the stamps that I have from Stampin' Up are retiring. And here's a look at the card that I created. And I actually have all of them finished and can show you. Look at that giant stack of cards. There are so many here. And they're all the same. But with watercolor, no two projects are exactly the same because they each have a uniqueness about them. So this is going to be sent out to all of the participants. So if you are one of the people that attended the class in person, then you can watch your mailbox for one of these cards to arrive very soon. I like this particular stamp set because it has an open line drawing. I'll give you a look at it here. And as we start the video, then you'll see exactly how the stamp looks. But with it being as an open line drawing, that means that I can color it in any way that I choose. And so what I've chosen is to use a technique with this that is called the masking technique, which I'll add to my technique journal. The technique journal is something that I've been working on, and it's something that I can create a technique, add it to my journal, and then I can go back to it at any time and be able to see exactly how I created it, or maybe get some ideas on how to use some technique for a stamp set that I have in mind, which sometimes I can use all the help that I can get. I'm sure we all have those moments. So let's take a look at the masking technique added with some watercolor and get an idea for maybe a new project. Let's check it out. Here's a better look at Better With You stamp set. I'm going to be working on watercolor paper, and I have a piece of printer paper, just something I pulled off of another, like an email I printed off. So I'll start off by stamping the bird onto the watercolor paper, and while that's drying, I will fussy cut the bird. Something to note is not to fussy cut outside of the stamped line, but right in the middle or just on the inside of the stamped line. The reason is because if you go over that stamped line, then it's going to create a halo around the image. I'm going to make it look like some kind of a hazy green and blue background, like it's out of focus if you were looking at the bird as a focal point. So just placing that piece of paper over that image, I'm going to use a sponge dauber and some light blue ink. I'm going to dab it on the stamp pad and then dab it off to get the bulk of the ink off, and then move the sponge dauber away from the stencil. So that would be like brushing away, like you were using a little tiny brush and a dustpan kind of thing, and just kind of like sweeping it away from the edge of the paper, from the inside edge of the paper. I hope this makes sense. So you're pushing the sponge dauber away from the cut edge of the mask. This is important because a mask can actually, if you push it against the mask, it can curl up the edges, and then you will not be able to get a crisp outline around it. This is how I create a sponged background, or just a background from a masked image. Here are some other masks that I have created using this stamp set, and it definitely is something to keep hold of. I'm going to use a variety of colors with this project. I'm starting off with a neutral earthy pink color. This is Petal Pink from Stampin' Up. And I'm going to do the wet on wet watercolor technique over most of the image. This is kind of an underpainting, the part of the pink area. It's not going to appear straight up pink in the finished image after it's colored, but it is going to hold some of those pink tones. It's like if I want the lightest part of the belly to be pink. So I'm adding the pink to a few areas, and then I've used a light brown color to go over the wings and the tail feathers. And now I'm using a dark brown. This is Early Espresso from Stampin' Up. And I'm going to use that and work it from the back areas, like where the curve of the bird's body would be, and into the shaded areas. The birds that I am modeling this after, of course, this is not going to be an actual bird name because I don't know too many that carry the pink tones, but I just really felt like these colors were working together really well. But the feathers are usually darker, so that's why I chose to make them stand out so much more than they were. So I'm back to that earlier pink tone, and now I'm going to use a very, very deep red. This is Merry Merlot, and work that into those curved areas. So you can see how the pink that I laid down first really worked out. Now here is where I'm adding some mango color into the feet and the beak. And these colors, they're looking okay together, but now I'm going to add some gray to actually color in the branch to look like a piece of birch. I thought this would be a nice contrast because there's a lot of brown tones on the actual bird, and so the gray would work out well. Now I'm going to add yellow. Yellow is going to carry all these colors and marry them together, and I'm adding that in on most of the bird, but I'm trying to concentrate it onto the areas that have a lot of the highlights. So the yellow is actually bringing together all of those deep tones with the light colors in the background. I'm using Stays On Permanent ink to stamp the sentiment directly under the image. Now I'll adhere this directly to a card base, and the note card is an A2 size. It is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. There are no layers to this card, and there's no, I'm trying to think of the right word. It's not, it appears as if it's just a one layer card, and that's because the watercolor paper is cut to the same size as the card base. There, I got it out. So I'm enhancing with a black marker the eye and around the mouth, and then now I'm bringing colored pencils. These happen to be watercolor pencils, but you can use any kind of colored pencils that you like. And I'm bringing some details into some of the very small areas. And what this does is it takes the watercolored image and it sharpens up some of the areas that normally wouldn't be so sharp. And I'm also using some of these neutral tones to create a drop shadow around the bottom of the bird and around some of the areas. And then I'll finish this up with the white pencil and bring the highlights into the edges of the bird's feather, or the bird's wing, the tail feathers around the face and on the belly. Overall, it's just a really nice finish off from transitioning from the yellow into the white tones. Some of the areas of the tree branch actually got a little color on them, so I'm going to highlight them back out and separate them from the look of the bird as well. I hope that this project has brought new ideas to you to use in your crafting. The masking technique is something that can be used to create a really interesting background, or you could use that masking technique to stamp one thing on top of another and make it appear as if it's natural in a scene. We will explore the masking technique a little more in a future video, but for now, this is a really good start. If you're new to card making, then this is something that you can practice and find very quick success. Thank you so much for joining me today. All of the products that I have used are listed down below in the video description. If you have not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, I would greatly appreciate the click to subscribe. And if you'd like to be notified when I have new videos, then just click that little bell beside the red subscribe bar and you'll get notified every time I have a new project upload. Thanks again, and I'll see you again soon.
Hi, my name is Trip. Thanks for watching the video. See you next time.